Thank you for joining me for another quick hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Doreen McGettigan and Stewart Wiggins, and I would like to talk about small talk. Stewart, kick us off.
So I'm going to set the stage and say that small talk is situational. Okay. And what I mean by situational is the utility of it in a dinner party or, some sort of social situation like that may be different than if you are going to an interview and there's that break the ice period during the course of that interview. If you do international work, we Americans are accused of being too direct. And when we go into meetings, we just want to go right into it. Whereas, for example, I'll use Belgium, for example. In Belgium, they want to talk. They want to get to know you. They want to build the relationship.
I think small talk kind of tends to make me uncomfortable a little bit, but it's necessary uncomfort because you kind of have to get through the small stuff to get to the bigger stuff, or I guess the deeper conversation. I was at the Chamber of Commerce awards dinner last night, in person for the first time in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people, hundreds of people there for dinner. And it was strange. Of course, there's so many people, you want to introduce yourself, you want to be part of the conversation, but I feel like people are really scared today to do anything more than small talk, because I think some people are even almost terrified because they're afraid to say the wrong thing or to be on the wrong side of somebody else's beliefs or feelings or whatever. So I just kind of feel like there's way too much small talk now and not enough serious debate or serious conversation. It's kind of sad.
I feel like small talk does have value because it allows us to kind of suss each other out and get to know each other a little bit and understand. But I agree with you, Doreen, that it can be dangerous if you take your small talk in the wrong, that's why we don't talk about politics and religion and those kind of things, because it's so easy to end up in a place where people are butting heads. And in the case of small talk, you kind of have to give grace and just allow for a little bit of space for people to speak, I think, because that's how you get to know them.
Well, what is small talk? Is it just nonsense? Is it just nonsensical? Probably a poor word on my part. But is it just talking for the sake of talking? Or what I'm hearing is there's a method to the madness that could lead to more in-depth conversation.
So for me, there are varying degrees of small talk. So if you're talking about the weather, that's basically useless nicety that just, well, we need to say something, so we'll talk about the weather. But if I ask you a question, which is a small talk type question, which is, do you enjoy what you're doing? Or have you always done this? Or how did you end up in this space? Those are small talk questions, but they allow me to get to know someone and kind of engage in them and learn, who are you and what do you do and why do you do it and what do you love? I think those are important questions.
I always like to start a conversation with somebody new with some sort of compliment. And then I try to ask, maybe a simple question to make them a little more comfortable. Even though I'm a little uncomfortable making small talk with somebody, I feel like if I put the ball in their court by asking a simple question, by saying something like, oh, I love your tie, or I love your blouse, or something like that, and then introducing yourself, and then maybe, saying, oh, so, what do you do? Or some silly question like that, getting them to not feel uncomfortable and maybe lead the way into a bigger discussion than just the weather. The weather is so silly.
Yeah. I mean, I've been told that I'm really good at small talk. And part of that is because I'm genuinely interested in other people. I want to ask them questions. But even I have had situations where I feel like I was carrying both sides of the conversation. And that's hard.
That is hard. Yeah. I genuinely care too. I genuinely usually, I have a journalistic background, as a journalist for a really long time. So I think that question asking and Newsiness is just
Well,
in me.
so that creates an interesting question. Where is the line between creating small talk and kind of being that and becoming nosy and like being too much in people's business? Like where, because I've had that happen where I've been in places where I'm like, oh, I do not know you well enough to have this conversation.
Well, I think you have to have some curiosity. You have to be able to listen to the person when they're talking so that you can be engaged in the conversation. And like you guys, I try to treat it like I'm interviewing the person so that I'm always like one or two questions ahead. Okay. I literally can talk to somebody for 30 minutes and walk away and they know nothing about me. And I'm perfectly happy with that circumstance.
Is that a win though?
I'm uncomfortable in the small talk, the networking. I'm uncomfortable with that. I can remember when I was, and this is going back to the military, I'm this young officer and I'm around all these senior officers and I had no idea what to talk to these people about. And so there's just like this dead space. So I learned to start asking questions about people. One of the things that I would say is like, well, what gets you excited in the morning? What gets you up? Are you where you expected to be at this point in your life? Those types of things. They'll answer a question which will lead to another question. I mean, I don't know what I would try to get out of that, except for the fact that I survived another conversation. Let me go to the next one.
So it is an important skill to have. And what sounds like what we're saying is the value is it at least eliminates the awkward silences, is to have some small talk, but being able to ask questions about other people. I think another part that people don't consider when they talk about small talk is that when someone asks you a question, answer it with a lot of information. Like what else can you add? If they ask you a yes or no question, can you add more? Can you say more? Because I think a lot of times people will answer a question with 5 words and then you're like, okay, well now I need another question.
So like I just met Doreen. So like if I was at a dinner party with Doreen and I found out she had just written a book, I'd say, so tell me about it. What was the level of effort required? Is this something that you always wanted to do? Is this your first book? So that gives her a litany of things that she could talk about. And I could stand there like this and smile.
And listen.
And listen. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love those kinds of questions, actually. And then, I would usually come back with, oh, is writing a book something you've ever wanted to do?
Now you've got me, because then I would say I've always wanted to do it. And that's why I'm asking you about the level of effort and how was the experience compared to what you thought it would be.
And see, what you guys did right there is perfect for small talk, which is you found a connection. You found a way to say, oh, we have something in common that we can talk about it. And now it's no longer small talk. Now it has a purpose. The conversation has a purpose. So maybe the value in small talk is looking for those little connections and speaking up about them and being able to say, oh yeah, we have this in common. What do you guys think of that idea about the purpose of small talk?
Plant the seed and cultivate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was perfect for me because that's my business. I consult with people that want to write books. So
that makes it easy, right?
That's
if they
a
go
great
right in.
networking situation for me, but it's not something that I have to necessarily do because I don't really, I feel bad saying this, but I don't really need clients. So, but I love talking about it, or I love helping people and giving tips and stuff like that. So that would be a great conversation for me.
Another really good question that I like to ask that is a small talk type question, but that can allow someone space is to ask them. And I think I've asked both of you this at some point. Tell me something either interesting or challenging that's going on for you right now. Because that question really gives people the opportunity to talk about anything they want at any length they want. And then I can just pick out little pieces. And I think that really helps small talk be both interesting and valuable, which for me is always the goal. So I want to thank you both for having this conversation with me. That is our 10 minutes. I look forward to talking to you again very soon, small talk or otherwise.